The huge liner stood at Pier 54 in New York, like a steel leviathan ready to leap across the Atlantic. It was the Lusitania, the crowning achievement of engineering at the beginning of the 20th century, a ship that was called unsinkable. Its belly hid not only luxurious halls and 6,000 electric lamps, but also the fate of 2,000 people. From poor emigrants in third-class cabins to the titans of the American and European elite. For most of them, this flight was supposed to be the last. The Titanic has always remained a symbol of the naval disaster in the popular consciousness. However, the tragedy that took place in May 1915 was much more sinister and methodical. If the passengers of the Titanic were victims of a blind accident and an ice block, then those who boarded the Lusitania entered the death risk zone consciously. On the pages of the morning papers, next to the flight schedule, there was an official warning from the German embassy. The waters around Britain have been declared a war zone. Any Allied flagged vessel could be destroyed without warning. The world was rapidly plunging into the chaos of the First World War. While the first-class passengers were enjoying halibut and expensive wines, the engine of an invisible enemy was already pulsing in the depths of the ocean. Captain William Turner, a 58-year veteran of Cunard, was absolutely confident in his ship. His logic was impeccable. The Lusitania reached speeds of up to 25 knots, which made it inaccessible to any submarine of the time. Turner, who once acted as an expert on the sinking of the Titanic, believed that his main ally was physics. But at the other end of this invisible thread was a man with a different code of honor. Lieutenant Commander Walter Schwieger, commander of the German submarine U-20, was a new type of predator. Hell reigned inside his 70-meter-long steel can, the smell of sweat, sewage, and diesel fuel. Schwieger did not see the faces of his victims. For him, war was just the geometry of angles and the calculation of distance in the eyepiece of a periscope. Among those who ignored the threat was Alfred Gwynne Vanderbilt, heir to one of America's wealthiest dynasties. His luck seemed legendary. 3 years earlier, he had canceled a trip on the Titanic at the last moment. Next to him on the deck strolled the writer Albert Hubbard, the influential real estate developer Ogden Hammond, and the famous bookseller Charles Lariat, who was bringing an invaluable edition of Dickens to London. None of them knew that the British Secret Service had already intercepted messages from German submarines. London had the encryption codes, but they were silent, afraid to reveal their knowledge. There is a theory bordering on a political conspiracy. The British Admiralty benefited from an attack on a civilian ship with Americans on board. It was the perfect lever to draw the neutral United States into the war. On May 7, 1915, the fog over the Celtic Sea lifted, revealing a panorama of the Irish coast. Captain Turner, following wartime austerity measures, ordered some of the boilers to be turned off, reducing speed. This decision was fatal. At 2:10 p.m., Walter Schwieger pulled the lever. The torpedo cut through the calm surface of the water, leaving behind a barely noticeable phosphorescent trail. When she hit the starboard side, there was an explosion, followed by a second, even more powerful and mysterious one. A huge hole in the hull turned the Lusitania into a sinking trap. The water rushed in at a rate of hundreds of tons per second. Unlike the Titanic, which went underwater for hours, the Lusitania had only 18 minutes. The electricity went out instantly. People were rushing around the tilted decks in the dark. Charles Lariat tried to convince Hubbard to run to the boats, but the writer and his wife froze in a daze, as if paralyzed by horror. When the liner finally buried its nose in the ocean, Captain Turner remained on the bridge until the last, washed away by the wave into the icy abyss. More than 1,000 lives were cut short in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. The tragedy of the Lusitania erased the last drops of gentlemanliness in naval warfare, proving that in the new century, technology and cold calculation are above human life. In your opinion, was the death of the Lusitania a tragic accident or a calculated move in the big political game of that time?